Hello Year 5 and welcome to your first English lesson on our new topic for this term. So we're going to be writing a narrative in the next 2 weeks, and what we're going to do is we're going to be looking at this using visual literacy. So we're going to be watching a video that portrays a story about some different characters, and we're going to use that as a basis to create our own narrative. Okay, so we need to be able for this lesson to infer what might be happening next in each part of our story. And you need to be able to use relevant evidence that you can see or that you might be able to hear that's going to help justify your opinion as to why you think that helps your prediction. So, you have all the questions in front of you that you will need for this lesson, so make sure that you've got them all in front of you. The first one comes with this picture, the astronomer's sun. What I would like to do is to think about the questions. So I'm going to get you to think about the questions first, and then we're going to go through and we're going to have like a discussion, or rather I'm going to have a discussion with you about some ideas, okay, that it could be about. So the first few questions I want you to look at is, what do you think the story might be about? Are there any visual clues to support your ideas? Does the pun, astronomer's sun, change your ideas about the plot? And is there a theme that you think that you can identify that this story might be about? So have a look at the picture on the screen, look at the words, pause the video, and I'd like to write down an answer for each of those questions, but I'd like them to be in full answers or in proper bullet points. So just spend 2 or 3 minutes thinking about some answers to those questions, so pause the video and have a go. Okay, so I'm going to just pick up on the one about the pun. Now, we looked at puns in English in our newspaper topics. So pun is when it's a play on words. So here we have the astronomer's sun. Okay, now if it says the astronomer's, it's got an apostrophe with the S, which means it's a possessive apostrophe. Now, the astronomy doesn't have the sun as in the big planet that's up in the sky, the big spherical body of the sun, but it might be a play on the word son as in having a boy, okay, a son as a child. Now, if you know anything about astronomy, we've known this when we've looked at our Mayan topics this term, we know that astronomy is the study of the stars, okay? So the astronomer's sun, okay, we've got the play on the words of sun, so we know this is going to be something based around space or looking at the planets. And there might be a father-son relationship that happens within our story, okay? So, because this story is a visual narrative, it's a story told through pictures or a video, okay? So rather than us reading different stories, we're going to watch the story. Now, there isn't any narration or dialogue, okay? So it's just visual skills and your listening skills. So that means that gives you the opportunity for you to think about what you think it's about and what might be happening in the story. So you have to use your inference skills to see what you can see, what you can hear, to try and work out what you think the story might be about. So these are the questions I want you to consider before I show you the first clip. So you have these questions in front of you and it'll be the first few bullet points. So what do you think the building is in the story? Does it look like it's been used or abandoned? If so, why would it have been abandoned? Who might have been using it? What do you think might happen next? So you don't need to answer those questions yet because I haven't shown you the video clip. But as you're watching the video clip, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to think about some answers to those questions based on what you can see. Okay? So I'm going to play the first bit for you. I want you to keep those questions in mind, okay, as you watch the first clip. It's only about 22 seconds, so make sure you're paying attention. Okay. So let's go back to our questions. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to make you pause the video and just have a think about some of the answers to those questions. Then we'll go through them together. So just pause the video and jot down some ideas. Okay, so what do we think the building is in the story? Now, if we know anything about astronomy and looking at the stars, we have buildings and towers that have like viewing platforms in them, and they're called an observatory. And that's usually where people have these special buildings, and inside there's usually a big telescope. And the building is specifically designed to be able to see the stars at night time, okay? Now, does it look like it's been used or abandoned? Well, I'm thinking inside it was very dark, it was very wet, very grungy, it didn't seem very warm. So I have a feeling that it's something that might have been abandoned, might be something that's no longer used. There wasn't lots of furniture in it, there wasn't anybody in it. Okay, it was quite dark and it didn't look particularly nice. It didn't look like someone had lived in it or looked after it. Now, why could it have been abandoned? Okay, well, we know it must have been used at some point because it was built. So at some point in time, it might have been used. It might just be that it was no longer needed because they built another one somewhere else. It might be that something happened inside this observatory. So people abandoned it, didn't want to be in it. Maybe it was haunted. Maybe there was a terrible accident that somebody had. Or maybe the person who owned it or used it maybe died. And maybe then no one took over it. So lots of possibilities about what that building could be and why it's there. So then we think, well, who might have been using it? Well, if we think about people who look for the stars, be astronomers, okay, and physicists, most likely they'd be the ones using it. But it could be a hideout for children. It could be something that's been brought into somebody's family and it might be owned by somebody. And then what do you think might happen next? Well, at that moment, I think it could be anything. Okay, someone might come in. Something might happen inside there. We might find that there is someone maybe living in there. Or maybe we're about to get an idea of the story behind why the building's there or what the building's there for. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next few questions. Okay, and I'd like to consider these questions when we re-watch the clip with a little bit extra on the end. Okay, so this will help you if you've got any gaps from your previous questions. So who is the man and the bear? So we're going to see a man and a bear in a minute. Do they know each other? What do you notice about the bear? What might that suggest about its relationship with the man? Have they been there before? Why are they there? And what genre is the film clip? Okay, and what clues will help you work this out? Okay, so I want you to have those questions out in front of you. Okay, and we're going to watch that clip again with an extra little snippet on the end, and then we'll have a quick chat through the questions. Okay, so as you're watching, just have a think about those questions. Okay, so we've been introduced now to the man and the bear. Now, originally we didn't think anyone had access to it or that anybody used it, but you heard the key click in the lock and you heard that squeak of the door. So that tells me that it must be owned by somebody, but also that squeak tells me it's not been opened for a really long time. So who is the man and the bear? Could they be the owners? Could they be local neighbours? Could they be someone looking to maybe buy the observatory? Is it something that belongs to them from the past? Is it something that's been left to them by somebody? We don't know who they are at the moment, but they potentially might know each other because they've arrived together. Now, we don't know at the moment whether they definitely know each other, but there must be some form of relationship because they're both there together. So they've both turned up with one of them holding the key. Now, I don't know if you noticed anything about the bear, but the bear had a slight funny walk to him. And if you could hear, it squeaked, his legs squeaked every time he walked. Now, he actually looks up at the man at the end of that part of the video, which maybe suggests that he relies on this gentleman to help him or to be a friend or to be an owner or to be a carer. So I think that there is some form of relationship between them, but we're not quite sure what it is yet. Now, have they been there before? Well, I think they have because they have the key to this building. Now, obviously, a building we think is abandoned and that nobody's used for a really long time. So they must have known where it was and must have known that that key was going to open that door. So at the moment, I think that, do you know what? Maybe I think they have been there before. Now, as to why they're there, maybe they're looking for something. Maybe they've come to collect something. Maybe they're going to clean it. Maybe they're going to set it all up again and start using the building again. Could be anything. And what genre of the film do we think it is? Well, if you looked really closely at the bear, he was a wind-up bear, so he's a mechanical bear. Now we know, before we even come across that part though, if that's not something you noticed, we don't have walking teddy bears. Okay, that's fantasy fiction. Okay, so at the moment we're pushing the boundaries of sci-fi, so science fiction. Okay, we've got a mechanical bear that's walking. Okay, and that doesn't fit in with fiction or non-fiction from what we have from our modern day. Okay, so that's going to be your clue to work out that it wasn't going to be a modern story or a real story because we've got a walking bear. So let's look at these questions now. I want you to consider these ones for the next part of our video. So has your view of the bear and the man's relationship changed? If so, what clues have led you to think differently? What do you notice about the magnifying glasses on the table and what might this suggest? What do you think the man was looking at on the wall? How do you think he felt when looking at the papers on the wall? And based on his expression, what emotions is he feeling when he's looking at these paintings or papers on the wall? So I'm going to show you another clip now, and I want you to have a think about those questions, and then I'll let you pause the video and just jot them down, and then we'll go through them together. Okay, so pause the video, okay, and just jot down any more of your ideas and then we'll go through these questions together. Okay, so has your view of the bear and the man's relationship changed? Well, I think there must be some kind of loving relationship there because he tugs on the man's trousers as if to say, I need something, I need you to help me with something. And he looks down at him and he has the key in his hand. Now, I assume that he's asking to wind him back up. That must be his energy source for him to keep going. So that man must be his owner or a friend because he has the key. So they're reliant on each other. So they must have a close relationship. And that clue is that gentle tugging on his trousers, quite an affectionate tug, but also the use of winding up the key. So they clearly have some kind of relationship. Now, I noticed that the magnifying glasses were broken. They were set up in a specific order, but they were broken, they were dusty, which makes me think they've been used before. But why would they have been broken? So that makes me think that maybe something's happened in this building that might have potentially have gone wrong. And since it's gone wrong, that might explain why it's been abandoned. Now, I think the man looked like he was looking at pictures on the walls, but from his expression on his face fell. He didn't look particularly happy. He almost looked like he was going off and he was thinking about something that he's experienced before. So it's almost like he might have been reminiscing on an experience. But I got the impression it wasn't a nice experience because his facial expression wasn't particularly happy. Okay, so I don't think he liked what it was that he was looking at. And I think it potentially might trigger something in him. So the film itself doesn't contain any dialogue or the narrative. Okay, so when we've done this inference lesson now, we've had to use those visual clues and our understanding to infer what might be happening in the story. Now, obviously, when we infer information, everyone has a different idea. I might have had some different ideas to those questions that you came up with. And if you're at school, you might find that your partner in the classroom has come up with a different one as well. That doesn't make it wrong. Okay, everyone has different ideas based on their own life experiences, but also background knowledge that's going to help you. Okay. So it's important to remember to use those visual clues, okay, to be able to help you when it comes to inference. So there's no additional task for you to do today because you've gone through and you've worked through those inference questions. Okay, but what I would like you to do is consider this question for the next lesson. It's on the bottom of your sheet. Why does the man have the bear's key that winds him up? So I want you to have a think about that relationship between this bear and this human. Are we looking at this person thinking he's maybe had him since childhood? Has he been a childhood toy that he's kept and kept and kept? Is it something he's built? Is it something he's made? So I want you to consider that and keep that question in mind for when we do our next lesson on Tuesday. Okay, so well done with that one, guys. Keep all those questions though, because they're going to help you with our lessons as we work through the week. And we're going to watch more of the video to see what more we can draw out from our story. All right, and I'll see you for our lesson tomorrow.